Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Park and Recreation Advisory Committee meeting, August 17, 2020. We do have a quorum, and I call this meeting to order. First order of business is I need a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I make a motion to accept them it's been so long since we met last.
I haven't seen a copy of them.
The last time I read them, I didn't have any.
So I went back today, and I won't lie to you, I kind of went back and watched the meeting a little bit because, but Kathy did send them out. It was pretty much, same stuff. We things that we had planned that didn't happen.
Right.
So that was pretty much the cut and dry of it. But anyway, I still need a motion to approve the minutes for the last meeting.
I made a motion.
Oh, I thought you were,
I made a motion
okay.
to accept.
So we have a motion to approve in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we're gonna get right into business here because I know everybody's been chomping at the bits and probably got some questions, and turn this over to, I guess we're gonna turn it over to Reagan and Smith, David.
We will, but before we do that, I don't know if everybody has met Andrew Stoffel. He was named park supervisor about a month ago. Andrew's been with us for probably 8 years, has done a great job for us, so we're excited to see him fill that role. Probably most of you guys have met him. You probably don't recognize him with that mask on his face, but we're glad to have him. Yeah, Reagan Smith's here for an update on the Parks Master Plan, so we'll turn it over to you guys. Did you guys want me to pass these out, or they're going to present a PowerPoint?
Well, we have a PowerPoint that we can present. Those are hard copies for your leisure, to take your time with.
So let's back up just a little bit because I'm confused. This gentleman is who?
Andrew Stoffel. You probably don't recognize him with a regular
I know.
street clothes on. He's usually a whole lot dirtier than that, but we made him clean up before he came down here tonight.
And he's worked for us for 8 months?
So he's been here for about 8 years.
8
8
years?
or 9 years, yes, sir. He's been on the maintenance side. All of our guys started out in Park and Rec and went.
Oh, so he's your new supervisor?
Yes, sir, on the park.
Oh, okay, I know who he is now.
Yes, sir.
All right. I apologize. I don't see anybody anymore.
And that may not be a bad thing, kind of out of sight, out of mind. You keep your head
Well,
low and just keep trucking on.
Good, congratulations. I know you, David, will definitely keep you busy. All right.
All right, we'll turn it over to Kevin and Matt whenever you guys are ready.
Sorry, guys, I was confused. I didn't recognize him without his work clothes and all that stuff on.
No worries. It's a pleasure to be here. And in fact, I think it's going to be interesting a couple months from now when everybody says, "Oh, I didn't recognize you with your mask off." So,
True story.
right. No, it is a pleasure to be here once again. Kevin Gunther with Reagan Smith and Matt Hamilton as well. I know it's been a while, so we're really glad to be back before you. We have been able to continue to get a lot of work done, even in the midst of things being slowed down in other ways. We were able to really focus in on the report, and
Same time.
fortunately, we got good
Well, they got
good feedback. Yeah, we can get you as many hard copies as you need. But we did get good feedback prior to March and the end of March when things kind of shut down, and that let us kind of continue forward. Just as a reminder where we're at in the process, you'll see that chart up there in front of you. We were able to get that inventory stage done. We've given recommendations on each and every park that's existing in the report. We've been able to get some good feedback on future ideas for future parks, and also analyze some of the things that are affecting the Parks and Recreation system around you, regional trends. And now we've got recommendations and implementations. That's what we'd like to focus on tonight, but we are open to any questions you might have. I believe if it's the will of staff and the park committee, we are scheduled to potentially go before Board of Mayor and Alderman next Thursday. Is that right, David?
Yes, sir. If there's
Okay.
not any changes that you guys see that you'd like to see implemented, this is pretty much what we'd kind of like to present to BOMA. But wanted you guys to get your eyes on it first, just to see if there was any suggestions or feedback y'all had.
Am I blind? I can't read none of that.
I know, I'm sorry, I'm
No,
struggling
I
too.
I don't know
apologize.
what
It is
it
hard to
is.
read off
I
that
hate to-
screen. And basically, that's the same schedule we've had since the beginning.
Okay.
It's just a visual cue for us more than anything.
Can you focus it anymore, Jerry? He was waiting on that question. Well, I'm glad to know I ain't the only one. I can't tell nothing about it.
I can't see it either, even with glasses on.
Well, and this is, really just kind of an opportunity to do a flyover again, see where we're at and present some of the ideas before you. But obviously, if you want to work with hard copies or any further review prior to BOMA, we can provide that.
And we could probably send you guys a PDF copy.
Right.
It'd probably be tomorrow, before we could get that out to you, but we do have access to that. And that way you can just scroll through, but if you prefer a hard copy, we can get that to you also.
I'd like to make a recommendation that we're all provided a copy of a PDF file and have a deadline to submit any questions to Parks and Rec to forward to you. But I do feel we need a deadline date because you have to present this information.
So you're coming before us for the workshop, David?
That's the plan. If there's not a whole lot of changes that you guys would like to implement, it's not gonna throw them a big curve. We're gonna present it to the Board of Mayor and Alderman also. So that would be next Thursday. And of course, if we need more time and you guys wanna see changes, then we can push that time frame back to the next month. So if you get this stuff and you get your eyes on it, don't feel like you're rushed to get something to them as soon as possible, because if, they can work with our schedule. We don't wanna put you guys in a crunch first time you see it and think, all right, in a day and a half, I've got to get them my suggestions, and then they would have to compile that and get it ready by next Thursday. So if we need to push that timeline out, we can.
Well, I'm excited.
Yes, so are we. So, there we go. One of the things that we did really highlight in the existing inventory and analysis phase was just the great opportunity you have here with your water access and, of course, the Corps of Engineer property and Hurricane Creek. One of the things I want to point out is that when I've been out there kayaking and canoeing, when I've kind of been able to experience that place in Hurricane Bay, it is unique in Percy Priest in that you really have that area south of the boat launches and the existing marinas. That's a no-wake zone, and there is all kinds of wildlife in there. There's all kinds of natural, just a natural environment that's very rich. So I think that is a very unique opportunity that's specific to the city of Laverne.
So have you guys been talking to the Corps?
We have talked to the Corps. They have a new person that is in charge of this area. We've also been talking to TWRA, and both of them are very open to doing some kind of joint venture, the possibility of having, more amenities at the boat ramp, extending the greenway into the Corps property. That'll be an ongoing discussion, but I think the door is open to that. And of course, it's always a layered process when you're dealing with an entity that big. But certainly the initial officers and the people that have been in charge of the discussion have been very open to it.
Have you been personally involved in it?
I have. We've got some contacts going, and I know that city staff has also continued some of those contacts, and I think it's a good time. The timing is right to kind of put that before them. And we'll talk a little bit about that too, moving forward towards grant possibilities and working towards a greenway extension. I think
So you feel pretty positive about
I
it?
do.
Good. Good. I'm excited.
Yeah. So here again, I apologize, you really can't read that information from where you're at, but just as a visual cue for me, one of the things that we looked at is kind of what's going on in the region and what's going on in general trends in park and recreation. One of the things that we are seeing a lot of is that there is, because of population growth, not only in Laverne, but other areas, now is the time to try to make your land acquisition plans and start to get that in place. That's very much a regional need. And one of the things that we forecasted in this plan is that in the perfect world, you'd have an additional 300 acres or more in the next 20 years into your park system. The only way to do that is, start banking it in pieces. Another trend that we've seen is that there is both an awareness that health and wellness in general is something very connected to parks and recreation. And that is something that's been really amplified in the midst of the COVID crisis, because people realize that you need these spaces, you need open space, you need the opportunity to get out and recreate. And that's not really something that's a secondary need, it becomes a primary need. So that's been recognized. And fortunately, the Department of Health has really stepped up in Tennessee, and they're working with TDEC and with TDOT on providing some grants that we can touch on related to diabetes and general wellness. But there's a recognition that parks and recreation are very much a facet of meeting health needs just as much as your medical facilities and communities. The other thing is the recognition that having partnerships and joint collaboration is really needed moving forward. Not any one city, any one county can really meet the demands of a growing population like we're seeing in Middle Tennessee. And then the other thing that we've seen very much as a trend regionally, it's just the idea that, there are outdoor recreation, environmental and natural amenities are becoming front and center with a lot of parks and recreation systems. As much as the athletic programs are very valued and continue to be important, there's also a recognition that hiking, biking, walking, just those social spaces in the greenway, things like dog parks and paddleboarding, and these are trends that are really growing in the region. So the second half of this page is talking a little bit about what we've seen coming out of the National Park and Recreation Association related to COVID. And this has increased the trend towards having the opportunity to do digital recreation. And what I mean by that is there are opportunities to be actually doing things like some of your fitness classes in a digital format. There's opportunities for some of the children to engage in gaming with their camps, and there's an opportunity to really connect some of your classrooms digitally with parks and recreation. So those are things that I think you will continue to see that's only been accelerated. And one of the things I would recommend is in your programming, anytime you think about adding additional programs or enhancing your programs, you probably want to think about some type of digital format that may allow for some kind of connection with that, as well as a physical format. It's also a way to try to deal with the costs of some of our facilities and our physical needs for capital investment being so high. The cost of things going up is sometimes you can actually amplify the opportunities for people in a digital format. One of the things that we recognized, in addition to the Percy Priest and the core property opportunities, is that there's a lot of things going on around Laverne that we wanted to make sure to recognize in our analysis. I'll point out that Cane Ridge Park, even though that's part of your Metro Park system, it kind of functions as a community park on your southwestern side. I still think there's a need for more facilities, but fortunately, that's taken a little bit of the pressure off of that community-type park in your southwestern side of the city. And also, if you look at where most of the Smyrna facilities are, there are also kind of some overlap with typical distances that people might travel. So if you add the natural resources areas that you have on the lake, along with Cane Ridge Park and some of the adjoining municipalities, I would say that some of the demands have actually been somewhat accommodated, which is a good thing for Laverne. At the same time, because you are kind of landlocked, you need to keep thinking about ways to take whatever parks you have and add more layers of opportunity to that parkland. And you really need to think about how to acquire some land, especially, like I said, on the other side of 24 now, where the growth is happening before that growth kind of hems in and becomes really difficult to get any more land acquisition. Okay, I'm going to let Matt cover the next 3 slides. This has a lot to do with the public input. He was been very involved in that process.
I think a lot of you have seen most of this before. I know you all participated in this. This slide's covering choose your favorite park activities. And we had a lot of public input on all of our meetings. And if you can see, the canoeing and kayaking, we kind of led the way, which kind of goes towards the trends of outdoor recreation, kind of Kevin was talking about earlier. And also splash pads, and I know there's one down in Smyrna right now. I know we've also kind of heard that maybe not something we would want to spend money on right now, but that's just one of the things that the public's kind of leaning towards. You can also see the greenways are also on there, which is leading more towards the outdoor recreation as well. Again, this is just further input we gathered. We kind of identified the opportunities and challenges, and again, the connections to park facilities and the greenway system really were the 2 that jumped out. Additionally, is one we identified was aging and outdated facilities. That's just something that as we grow, we just want to continue to pump money into existing facilities just so we don't forget about those as well. And one of the easy things we do, we've already identified and be a good opportunity for grants, would be the skate park, expanding that. I know we've already heard from a lot of public, we've received a lot of public input and willing to support with that and kind of help out. And I know we've all seen this map before. This is the composite demand and service analysis. This is where we take all the live, work, play maps and we combine them all together. And that's just kind of showing where all your demand is. And we overlaid that with the existing park facilities as well as some of the other lots that the city owns. And that just kind of, just shows where kind of the gaps are, where the demand and where the service is. And we've identified there on the south side of the 24, kind of close to Cane Ridge and Brookside Park is a good area, as well as some of the industrial area. But we've also talked about up towards Lake Forest, even though there is a park up there, it's really kind of, it's back in the Lake Forest neighborhood and it's not the largest park, so we could see that also being an area as well. Are there any questions on what I've covered so far?
Mankin Park, what, is it gonna stay the way it is, or?
Mackin Park, yeah, there's not a whole lot of room for expansion at Mackin Park. We try to keep it up, I think.
What is that, about an acre?
It's an acre, it may be a little less than an acre. It's got a pavilion, 2 play structures, swing set, barbecue grill. I mean, it's a nice neighborhood park, but as far as, it's kind of landlocked. So it's
Kind
not
of
to
built out
expand.
as well.
Okay.
What would be, this is a stretch, I mean, this is a stretch. What would be the first move or idea about getting a recreation or a park or something on the other side of the interstate?
Definitely have to come up with the land, at one time, probably 10 years ago, we thought we had that back there where the Brookside Greenway dead ends. That deal didn't work out, so a developer came in there and started building subdivisions. There's a little bit of land, and I don't know where it stands now, that's probably up to the city engineer. We thought at one time the developer may donate a little spot there at the back end of the walking trail where we could put a neighborhood park. It's kind of a conjoined effort where they would give us land, we would put the structure there, and then I think they would build a shelter.
Yeah, there was some talk about a developer out there doing, McFarland Farms and was gonna give us, some stuff, but nah, it was so minute, it wasn't even worth talking about, so.
Well, when we had looked into it, it wasn't gonna be a massive structure. The playground was probably gonna come in right around $50,000. And that's when we thought we had that beeline on that Blue Cross Blue Shield grant. And that pretty much would have covered almost everything out there.
Have we got people now, I know we don't have a grant writer no more, do we?
We don't have a grant writer now. I think every department is probably taking it upon themselves. And a lot of the grants that Kevin and Matt are referencing to come from the state, and that cycle's been shut down due to the COVID.
They've just reopened it. Thursday, September 1st at 1 o'clock, they're doing a WebEx workshop, and there's no charge to it, and I can give you a phone number. They just sent out a news release, 615-532-0752. September 1st is an online workshop, and you have to attend that to be able to apply or be on the call. But it's for the local Parks and Recreation Fund grant and the Trailway, the hiking greenway grant. And there may be another one, but those are the two I'm aware of.
Do you find that most of the cities you all work in and work with, that some of them, for lack of better words, drop the ball and don't pursue a grant that you personally know is out there, and then it just kind of comes and goes? And
Well, Kathy brings up a good point about that grant cycle opening again. George Brogdon did put out that notice. And while we're on the grants, I think I can talk about this a little bit and respond to your question, Mr. No. What we've found is a good approach is once you have your master plan and you've identified 3 or 4 things that you think are a priority for your community, you go ahead and you aggressively apply for grants. The 3 big organizations statewide are TDEC, which Kathy mentioned, which has the local park and rec funds. Those have increased to up to $1 million, not the grant itself, but you can get a $500,000 match. In any natural surface trails, that can be totally separate from any kind of greenway. It can even be just a wood chip trail if you want. And then they also have grants, and this wouldn't apply to you, but they have grants for communities that have a need to set up their initial structure of actually having a parks department. Well, they can assist with that. The other big department is TDOT, and I think you're in line to really go after one of those transportation alternative grants. That cycle is also coming up. That's coming up in October. And those can be used for greenways. They can be used for, as we saw, the connection opportunities, even bikeways or some type of multimodal transportation. They can also be used in some cases to relieve traffic congestion, which can tie into some of your planning efforts. And then the third department that's really stepped up recently is the Department of Health. And they are actually about to go into another cycle as well. They have one grant that's set up for the built environment. They're smaller grants, they're about $10,000, but they can be used from anything to a playground, to program enhancement or extensions, or even if you want to do some maintenance on existing facilities. They're very flexible. They can cover everything from planning to actual implementation. And then the Department of Health also has a diabetes grant for there. Again, that could be potential for any of your greenway extensions, anything that's going to increase opportunities for people to get active and healthy. So those are 3 big departments, and what we like to do is try to help you target those. We can assist with grant writing too. That's something we can do. And then typically what we find, if you have a master plan and the state agencies see that you are willing to put skin in the game with matching funds. If you started a phase like you've done with your greenway, a lot of times, they will look on that very favorably. It increases your chances of getting a grant. Especially if you've got a plan that shows, here's why we want this, here's how it's connected with what our community wants, the input we've gotten, and here's how we've already invested in it. If you touch onto those three things, it really helps in your grant pursuits.
In your experience, what kind of percentages are those grants?
Oh, I would say it's a 50-50 roll the first time. A lot of times, if you don't get it the first time, they'll even encourage you to come back and apply again, just to show that you really mean it and that you are staying with your plan. So, you know, I'd say it's usually about a 50-50 shot. I think some years, you know, we work with communities and it turns out real good, you know. 8 out of 10 grants that we've applied for, people get those, and then other years it might only be 3 out of 10, you know.
There's a lot of factors that go into the grant application. They're often scored on a point system based on each applicant. And they'll look at, all right, so say for example, you just built a community center. They usually, not unless it's like he was saying, some type of extension, they're not going to invest in another community center because they just helped assist with that. So you really have to look at innovation, community needs by doing the needs assessment surveys. They're interested in that, what the community's interested also. A lot of factors go into that, and the master plan, that's another big factor. We had talked about this for a long time, and I'm glad to see that we're finally working on that, so.
And once you also apply, takes them a minute to say yes or no, you get the grant. And then once you get the grant, the hoops that you have to jump through are tremendous. So you got to really be organized budget-wise. If you want to apply, I don't know, for a new playground somewhere to set up a whole new park, you need to start putting that in the budget now. That 50% match has to start immediately.
Well, I have to give
Once you get the contract signed and your plans approved, then you've got 2 years to complete the project. That's for the TDEC,
That's for the local park and rec,
LPRF grant.
right?
I gotta give David prompts. I've talked to him quite a bit, and I've learned a lot from talking to him about grants. So he's pretty savvy on these grants, and him and Kathy are. So I'm sure that everything we're sitting here talking about, he's.
Mhm.
You can bet she's writing it down, and David probably already knows.
Well, Kathy hit on the commitment that it takes to get through the cycle and the actual implementation. And what I just need to make clear to everybody right up front, grants are great. A lot of times they give you fuel that can help you where you wouldn't have fuel, but they are a marathon. They're always a marathon. So you're not, you know, it's always kind of exciting. It's when you get that check and you can hold it up and get the press release. But that's just the first step. And it typically, the average, I'll say, for like a TDOT grant related to transportation alternatives programs, they say a typical turnaround from the time of getting the grant to actually, you know, finally completing the project, an average is 5 years. You know, Kathy mentioned that the TDEC cycle for even something like a playground or something smaller is 2 years. Now, you can extend it past that, but then it prevents you from continuing to get after more. And they kind of start to look a little less favorably on you if you're dragging your feet. So all of those, I think, are real opportunities. I think in our plan, what we've tried to do is highlight some of the we think are the best targets. One of them is what you see on the screen, extending that phase of your greenway out to Hurricane Creek. We think that's a really good target for a grant. Something like expansion of your skate park is a good target for a grant. Even just enhancing some of your existing ball fields, if you can show that you need that kind of activity. Something like your soccer program. Those are all really pretty easy targets, and a lot of it depends on how much you want to aim for. And what I would suggest is aim for 3 or 4 things, and then that way, you'll have a better chance of at least getting one.
Right, and keep in mind, it doesn't just have to be a state grant. You can use on top of that foundation grant and, Bridgestone, I know that we have partnered with them, with Parks and Recreation before. They helped with the Lake Forest Park. So there's a lot of different fundings that is available. But community foundations, are a good source, especially, there's a lot for, health initiatives. I know David had mentioned the Blue Cross Blue Shield, but there's also other foundations that help in the state of Tennessee.
Absolutely. The three that I named are just kind of the big state agencies, but there's a lot of, especially if you can find local companies or foundations that really want to feed into the community, those are excellent sources. I really think that you could use some parks even in some of your industrial mixed-use areas, because you think about the opportunities during the daytime for people to get out and just connect, with that outdoor experience or some kind of recreation. Kind of back to COVID, people have found all of a sudden that there's a real desire to have places close to where you work, live, and play, where you can get out and recreate. Did I answer your question, Steve?
Yes, sir. I could only say that I wish that I knew more about grants. I've tried to read about them and study them and stuff, and man, it's just a lot of, these two, they can,
It is a marathon, and that's part of the marathon, is just constantly kind of revisiting that information, and it's not something you sit down and read in one night and you got it figured out.
I know the city just got a huge 90% grant for like $2.6 million. We got to pay, 5% or 10%. So I understand the importance and the persistency and the marathon. I understand all that. So I wish, as a citizen, knowing that 26 years ago, what could we have had now
Right.
had we been persistent back then?
I hear what you're saying. I mean, I lived in Laverne for quite a few years, and I hear what you're saying. It seemed like we kind of missed some opportunities. But I think the good news is now's the time we're planning for the next 20 years, right? So,
Yeah, I feel like we're more educated and have more want to and
Right.
got better people, and Lord, I'll probably get smacked for that, but
I know, and this is kind of the way I look at, and I have been very vocal about, since I've been on this board, about applying for grants. Being a member of the community, I mean, we also have to be good stewards of the money when I say taxpayer money that we're using, and by not applying for any of these, whether it's a 50% chance, I mean, if we're going to grow and build the parks, and which we have in the 20-some years I've been here, we should be applying for these. Whether we get them or not, who cares? We need to be trying for them, be good stewards of taxpayer dollars.
let me ask a question. If we are persistent, and I'm learning about these grants every day, is we apply for a grant today, and then a year and a half goes by or whatever, and it ends up being a 50-50 grant, but at that time, we just simply don't have the money to match that 50-50. First of all, do we lose it? And second of all, how does that make us look to those grant people?
It's going to make you look bad.
yeah.
No, you-
Yeah, there'll come a point where you've got to make that commitment, and you will lose it if you can't commit to it, and it will be seen as kind of a negative thing if you
They'll ding you.
don't accept it. So you do, you want to make sure the support is there from your community leaders, the financial ability to match whatever it is you want to do. That is part of the due diligence of your grant processes. People think of it as free money. We all know there's nothing free, right? But it is a way to leverage your money, and it's a way to leverage your goals, and that's how I try to get people to see it. It's not like you're going out asking for free money, you're going out to ask for help to leverage what you have and to achieve the goals that you as a community feel strongly about.
So you're going to present this to us next Thursday week?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have the opportunity to focus in on any part of this plan.
Unless some of these members and stuff have questions
Right.
or input or comments or
Right.
whatever, but when you come before us, you're doing pretty much the same thing you're doing now, or are you coming to us and asking us for something?
No, I think it's the same thing I'm doing now. We're presenting to you where our recommendations are, where the implementation opportunities are, and letting you as a city and as a park commission and as a community decide, what you want to focus on next. And that's really what the master plan is. It's trying to give you the background information, and we're targeting, what we think we suggest could be the primary opportunities, and then, but letting you decide.
Is that something we vote on, David?
The master plan? No, because the board voted to
Yeah,
bring
we-
these guys on board to do the plan.
Right, we did
And-
that.
Once it gets implemented, or once they turn it over to us, I think it would be our job as a board to decide what we thought was the top priority as a Parks Board, and then present that to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and tell them we want to move forward.
Now, if I recall, when I was looking at the proposed budget that had passed, that there is a 20-year capital plan that's already in place by the city, so wouldn't you kind of incorporate what was in that plan, or follow that plan? There was like a 5-year, 2
Yeah,
years,
they've got a
5-year.
5-year, 10-year, and a 15, 20-year plan. We could follow that, but I think we were shooting in the dark before because we really didn't have a concrete place where we wanted to go. We all had these ideas of, we need a soccer park, we want a splash pad, we need a community center. But we talked about them forever, but nobody really pinpointed down, okay, because all you guys know, because y'all have been here for years. We've sat around here for years and talked about, this is what we want, this is what we want. Well, now they're gonna put it in writing, this is what we want. We gotta figure out how we need to go get it now. And the grants are a great way. I'm glad you knew that was open, because we didn't get an email that it came
And just
open.
FYI, that was like just Friday they released that, so it's,
Um,
yeah, it was just released.
And
so.
we do need to figure out, if we're gonna move forward with the project, is the city gonna allocate the funds? Is the city willing to allocate the funds? Are we gonna get any donors from outside of the grant or the city, like the skate park grant? The skate park extension got big play. Everybody wanted to see this, and it gets a lot of use, don't get me wrong. That is probably one of our most popular attractions up there. The Tony Hawk Foundation, which is now, I think, called the Skate Park Grant, we did submit for that. The response we got, we have no funding set aside for that. We have no fundraising. We've had a lot of interest from the public that said they could get community involvement and raise funds, but unless we have, for instance, 30% already raised, then they're really not gonna look at us. So somewhere down the line, we need to decide, this is what we're gonna move forward with, this is where our funds are coming from. If we wanna move forward with the skate park, the main community advocate has said he could raise the money, he's talked to these, we need to start doing that. If the city's willing to allocate some land for that, then we've gotta have a plan in place.
So do
Until we
they,
have that money, or until we have some funds set aside or raised specifically for that, just the skate park grant is the one I'm talking about, then we could apply 10 times, but we're gonna get turned down 10 times.
so do we take, as far as the city goes, or BOMA or whatever, do we take and pull out what they have presented as top numbers, things, what we'd like to accomplish?
I think we would probably do that as a Park and Rec Board and present it to them, and then let the BOMA, Board of Mayor and Aldermen, get their take on it and see if they're in agreement with us. Because ultimately, the decision's gonna come down to the BOMA as to whether they're willing to provide the land and they're willing to fund the matching part of it.
Okay.
And the important thing is that whatever you do decide is your, say, your top 3 or top 5 things that you really feel you will want to make a priority, we want to make sure to state that in the master plan, because that gives you, you know, the tools that you need to, when you go and apply for a grant, to say, okay, here it is, our master plan calls for it. So, you know, I encourage you to look at these things and tell us, along with staff, you know, what you, if you think we've hit the right targets. 12 big ideas. This is one of the last pages in the plan. This is that if you need an elevator speech or you want to work with some community leaders or people that don't want to read through 60 pages of a report, this is a good page to go to, and it summarizes what we think are your top facility, program, and economic and partnership needs. The facilities, you know, we had hit on that, expanding on the Greenway. We think that's a top facility priority. We think that some type of community park and a community center should be primary long-term targets. And we also think that working with developers and doing something like you did at Brookside, getting that to happen should also be a priority for some physical facilities to get implemented, because that allows you to take some of the, you know, that quality of life issue and work with a developer and say, look, this is a great place for people to build homes and move to. We need your help in providing maybe some land or some development fees. I know you have a development fee schedule, but you may want to increase that a little bit. And I know there's always a balancing act there, and I work with plenty of developers, so believe me, I know can't just ask for, you know, the moon. But that third opportunity to develop neighborhood parks, I think it could really be something you try to make a part of your development process, at least one option for those kind of neighborhood parks. I think Mankin Park's a good example. You know, when that was put in a long time ago, I don't know, how old is that park, David?
Probably at least 20 years old.
Right, so when that area was developed.
Mankin Park, it's older than 20 years
I think
old.
it was like 30 or 40.
Oh, yeah, 'cause Mankin Park was just started when we moved here. We've been here 50-something years, almost 60
Hold on now, you're
years.
telling your age.
Miss Skinner played there when she was a little girl.
I mean, it was there. It wasn't like it is today, but Mankin Park was there.
So from what I'm hearing, a couple of main points here. The first one is grants. Second one is land acquisition. And third is prioritize.
Yeah, I think those are some good summaries. And with your programs, you know, you wanna basically take a place like Veterans Park, that's your flagship, just figure out as many programs as you can stack in that space and keep looking for more. Like we mentioned, the possibility of a disc golf course, you know.
Yeah, that was David's thing. I was excited about all that and pickleball and everything, so we still,
Yeah, pickleball is a great example.
this
You know, when you-
COVID thing has really just put a,
It'll come back. Pickleball is here to stay. So when you like that, resurfacing your tennis courts, look for ways you can stack your functions in there, and that's what you're gonna need to do with all your parks. And then the outdoor recreation programs, I mean, I think you can even work in conjunction with TWRA. I know they have some things where they have field classes and they have environmental programs that you might be able to tie into some of your park and recreation programs, just in terms of that cross-pollination. As people come to your rec centers, they might find out more information about those programs, and TWR can say, yeah, by the way, we work with the city of Laverne on Hurricane Creek, and maybe you have some paddle classes. You get out there in canoes and kayaks and take advantage of the unique wildlife that's out there. Those are the kind of ideas I think some of your programs can expand on without a whole lot of cost, because you're gonna team with other people. Well, I said it without a whole lot of cost. Everything costs something now, but, so that's kind of the economics side too, is, you know, you need to, the tough thing with Parks and Recreation is realizing that everybody gets excited about the capital improvement project with a shiny new park or toy or something that's gonna be exciting, you need to invest just as equally in your operations and maintenance, because that, keeping the facilities in good shape is just as much a challenge over time. The other thing is that, you may look at, this kind of gets into the partnerships, but I think that regionally, if you think about Smyrna and Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, the Percy Priest Lake, acreage, think about some of those natural areas that we talked about, this region could become, the kind of place where that outdoor recreational experience is really highlighted, and where, you try to work with other communities at saying, hey, let's make this a place where people come as a destination to experience some of these things. We think that that's something that could really, because of the unique nature, even the Cedar Glades, those are something very unique to this area. So that's your page to go to if you want to just have coffee with somebody and say, here's kind of our 12 biggest ideas that came out of this plan. And then, as was mentioned, we've kind of categorized these into capital improvements of short-term, mid-term, and long-term. I think your short-term, one of them you've actually taken action on even before this plan was done, which was the Bark Park. I think that's going to be a great, implementation that'll get a lot of excitement. The walking trails renovations, that, making sure you resurface some of those. Brookside Park is waiting to have some amenities added to it. I think that's some low-hanging fruit. Things like the skate park expansion and disc golf. Midterm, we see that need for some kind of west side neighborhood park. Greenway extensions, like I said, those are marathons, but you got to start now to add another 2 or 3 miles every 3 or 4 years. I think we've heard that the senior center baseball field really needs renovation. And trailheads, even adding trailheads to your greenways, I've always seen the opportunity to do something right here near City Hall that might be a little bit more amenity oriented. So people come and they use the shelters and they use the park, but then they see the greenway, or vice versa. They come for the greenway, but then they realize that there's other amenities, right here in the park. And then we think soccer could be really something you could expand on in the midterm. And then the big ones, long-term, are that idea of a new community center or a large community park and some kind of outdoor experience facility or branding that the city engages in. So that's just a quick summary, and we'll work with David to make sure to get you copies of what you need to dive in deeper. I like the idea of sending out a PDF, because then you can just take your leisure to flip through it.
What is David, what's he talking about, senior center baseball field?
That's just a senior baseball field behind here, behind City Hall.
Oh, okay.
And it's really
I was-
unusable at this stage.
I was
It's
focused
gonna-
on the old baseball field by the senior center.
That's what I was thinking too. That's what I was thinking.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, I was,
No, we probably need to reword that. I think
Yeah,
it's
I think you
confusing.
do.
I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah.
So we're excited. We're hoping to help, get some targets and some momentum with you, and we're open to making any revisions we need to make sure that this is communicating loud and clear what you all believe in, and there's some good potential.
I do have a question. In your report, do you show the collection of data from the age categories, how many children in the household? Do you have that information in this report? 'Cause I'm
That
curious.
information is, there's a digital online survey that we've been accruing information for some time. How many respondents did we get? Do you remember, Matt? It was pretty good response. I want to say upwards of 300 plus, maybe more than that, I think. Okay.
So do you have the breakdown?
Those breakdowns are in there as to
It is in
gender
here.
and age group, and
Okay, good.
there's a question, when you go to a park or a facility, do you tend to go as an individual or as a family, or, you know, those are questions that you'll see actual graphs and
Okay.
responses to. So what we do, we kind of take that composite map combined with the online inventory and then your public input sessions and then your feedback here from community leaders. Those are all kind of layers that we put together to get, you know, to this final recommendation stage.
All right, does anybody have any more questions for these gentlemen? Fellas, great job. You've been here. I know everybody, I speak for everybody on this board when I say every time you guys have been here, we have been excited, more excited. As I've learned, being in government for a short time, that it is extremely slow. But at
Sure.
least we're starting somewhere. So you did a great
It's
job.
our pleasure.
Great job with your PowerPoint, and I guess I'll see you next Thursday week, and hopefully, you know, hopefully our grandchildren will
benefit from it.
benefit from this. yeah.
Right,
Well, I
sure.
hope they have some stuff for us to do too.
Well, thank
We
you
just
once
won't
again.
get-
And
We're
We just
excited.
want benches.
Yes,
we'll,
yeah.
we'll continue
No,
to
no, no.
work with whatever schedule you need and move as fast as, or slow as you need. Of course, we think there's some momentum going, so we want to help you keep that as much as you can. So thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you, fellas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do need those benches, don't we?
Yeah, we need benches. All right, we're going to get back to the meeting here, and we're going to turn it over to David. He's going to tell us some of his thoughts about Old Timers Festival.
Old Timers Festival, October 17th. We are in the process of making preparations now. We had our first meeting here at City Hall this morning to go over things because I think the COVID's kind of got everybody slowed down. People are afraid to commit. Demonstrators are afraid to commit. I think we're going to struggle to get demonstrators at this point. Nobody but one person has come through. I think we'll have plenty of vendors setting up tents. I think our demonstrators like the blacksmith, the loom weaving, soap making, we're still reaching out to those people to see if we can get somebody to come through. Reached out to several carnivals. Majority of the carnivals are canceled. They don't want to come here for one event. They want to kind of get it in a cycle, so those cycles aren't following through this year. Hopefully by October 17th, middle of October, we'll be back to some type of old normal.
So your carnival from Manchester fell through? Did it really? Well, on a good note, I heard from the Farmer's Almanac that day it's supposed to be like 72 degrees with no humidity.
We hope so. We're due for some good weather because usually if we're in a drought planning an event, we're going to get some rain. So we're not going to do that this year. Yeah, we're scheduling. We're getting our vendors lined up. We do have the steam engine guy coming from Eagleville. He's bringing 2 steam engines this year. I think we've teamed with Sonic. The theme this year is Cruising Through the Ages. I believe that was set a couple of years ago. For the next 3 or 4 or 5 years out, they set those. We teamed with Sonic. They're going to have that back parking lot for kind of like a car show also.
David, what about, like, say, animals and things like that, like we had when we was out here? You know,
Well,
had,
we actually, the petting zoo did commit, so the petting farm is coming out. We're not doing the bounce houses this year. The library is taking over. We're allotting them a bigger space up by the pavilion, so they're gonna kind of expand. They're gonna take over the kind of the kid zone for us. They're gonna expand some of their activities. Then the petting zoo is gonna be on the back side of those. We're still gonna have the animal guy, Bob Tarter's gonna come out, do his show several times. Library's bringing in a magician. So we're trying to offset the kid zone that we had last year to something a little more feasible this year. We didn't really think it was prudent to go the bounce house route this year. So we're trying to come up with different ideas to offset it where everybody still can come out and have a good time.
'cause I was thinking about like the petting group, like out in the wooded area, you know, up on the hill, that would be a good place. It'd be away and
Well,
kids wouldn't be in the way.
and you mentioned the hill. I think what we're gonna have to do this year, it gets so congested around when we try to put everything around Pavilion A and not spread it out. Due to the COVID, I think we may bring the whole hill back into play and just, instead of having tents on both sides of the greenway, just have them on one side. We're gonna try to filter traffic in one direction. That's not gonna be possible, but that's our intentions anyway.
We try.
Good try.
And I think once we congested it, I personally like the whole hill being in place
I do
because
too.
it gave
I
people
like-
a
I
better
like it too.
opportunity to
I
stay longer.
Yeah.
You know, if you get crowded around that pavilion and there's tents on each side and you make one loop and you're navigating traffic, then you're in and out quickly. Senior Center's still gonna have Pavilion A, they're gonna set up there. We are gonna try to have 2 stages this year, one located on the football field and one down in the front parking lot with the food vendors in the front parking lot. That's gonna be our main stage. Our plan right now is on Friday night to kick off with a concert on the football field. Just because several years ago, I don't know if you guys remember, on a Friday night, we probably kicked off with a movie.
Yeah.
That was a pretty good crowd there. They
good
showed up
crowd.
there. But with us having a stage and a tent on the football field this year, it's not gonna be possible to do the movie, so we're actually gonna try to bring some food trucks out on Friday night, have some live entertainment, maybe try to do a beer garden that night to see how that works, and go
So-
from there.
Did you say beer garden?
So did things,
What'd he say?
Beer garden,
I'm
yes, sir.
very, very interested in how this
That's what I thought
works
he
because
said,
they're
beer
trying to do
garden.
one where I work right now too.
did,
I
so-
still think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
all right, first of all, so did something change with the city ordinance to allow?
Yes, ma'am. They
Okay.
passed a special event beer permit ordinance, so
Okay.
if
I wasn't
we
aware
do
that.
have to go before the board to designate which events
Got-
that that's gonna
okay.
be used at, so it's just not open to every event. It'd have to come before the board,
All right.
whether it be Old Timers Day or 4th of July, and the board would have to vote on
Are
it.
you gonna involve the beer board in this too?
The beer board is the ones that actually, that's where the ordinance originated,
Okay.
was at the beer board. So now whether it has to go,
I can give you
whether the
my
applicant
word
has to
already.
go back before the beer board before it comes to the BOMA, I'm not 100% sure about that. With it passing the beer board already, I would just think they'd have to fill out an application. I think there is a small fee, and then the board would have to approve it.
So are you talking about current beer vendors able to sell, or are they looking for new ones? Because the background checks are what's really important with
Right.
the beer board.
You'd have to have the background check, that'd be part of your fee, and then you'd have to have a permit to sell beer. Whether that be there's some confusion there, which I'm not 100% sure on. A liquor license, I don't know if that actually gives you the right to sell beer publicly.
No.
No,
I
it's
don't
two
know.
separate.
You would have to
permits,
have
yeah.
a permit to sell beer to the public in an event.
Yeah, liquor licenses, I think, are issued by the state, where beer is by the community.
So this is gonna be our first step off into it to see how well it turns out. So hopefully within the next week or so, we'll have you guys more information. I think it has to be done 45 days before the event due to the ordinance.
Where are you talking about putting a beer garden?
We would probably locate it back around the football concession or back in that back parking lot for that Friday night if we're gonna have entertainment on the football field.
That would be about the best place to have it.
Agreed.
That'd be ideal.
So
I
those
still like
details
it.
haven't been worked out yet, but we're gonna
Ooh, that's a
continue to
big-
get on that
that's a big
tomorrow.
bite.
I still like the idea of getting about 5 or 6 of old gentlemen together and putting up a useless information tent for people that wants to come and get useless
Are you
information.
talking about free advice?
Free advice.
Free advice from old people, it might not be good, but we'll give it to you.
All right, so we'll move on to the parade grand marshal. We were gonna take this off for right now, but I asked Kathy to put it back, and my ideal was, everybody knows you can't be someone that's already been there, can't be an employee, can't be any board members, has to be a citizen. What I'd like to do is to ask each board member to submit to Kathy your number 1 pick, your number 2 pick, and your number 3 pick for a grand marshal for the parade. Is that correct, Kathy? Did I say that right?
Yes, I think that board members may be eligible, because I believe we've had one.
You a grand marshal?
Yeah, Miss Skinner was one before.
Oh, I thought you
Yeah.
checked into
Well,
that. and-
I found out after our conversation.
Okay.
The board members
so-
are eligible.
Okay, so
That's right.
board members are, but important enough is to send her a number 1, a number 2, and a number 3.
And they would have
What's the
to be-
deadline?
I'm sorry.
What's the deadline? What's the deadline?
You have a deadline, Kathy?
We haven't talked about a deadline. We would at least like to know by probably mid-September. That would give us a month.
So why don't we just say that then? That's gonna be we'll say the 15th of September will be the deadline.
And
So-
would they have to be from Laverne?
I would have to, personally, I'd say they definitely gotta be from Laverne.
Laverne, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we've had grand marshals from before, but they weren't from Laverne, but I think they need to be from Laverne.
Well, if it's a Dolly Parton, I think that'd be okay.
I don't
think anybody would downvote that, so.
I remember Leland Statham was.
Yeah,
Wasn't Larry Flowers?
Yeah, the Elam Statham was, and then somebody else, another,
Larry Flowers?
Well, I mean, those are all good people, but I'm greedy. I want a Laverne citizen.
a Laverne person, yes.
So the next thing is the farmer's market.
I'll turn that one over to Kathy.
Yeah, I
because over
mean-
the course of the
Poor Kathy.
course of the last 2 weeks, it has gone from 3 weeks ago, 2 vendors, to 2 weeks ago, 10 vendors, and I think last week, 13 or 14. So within the course of 2 weeks, and I think that's just getting out there doing the legwork and putting forth the effort and making the calls and literally not taking no for an answer. So I think what we had all envisioned several years ago when we first started talking about the farmer's market, I think you've got to have that person in there that's actually going to start knocking on doors and getting people to show up. And so with that said, I'll turn it over to her.
All right, this week we have 11 vendors signed up so far. We've had pretty good turnout. I've heard all positive remarks. Last week it dwindled down, hopefully, we had a really good turnout 2 weeks ago as far as citizens coming out. But we've got vendors, our loyal vendors come back every week. We've got new ones coming tomorrow that haven't been before because they've heard word of mouth. So, hopefully it's on the up and up.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you guys something, man. If you like salsa or jams and jellies, there are some really good ones at that little farmer's market. And the one girl that lives down in Lake Forest is starting to make hers with Splenda. She'd got a request, and man, the tomatoes and vegetables and the little trinkets and everything are second to none. The salsa is great, so tell your friends and get out there and support them. All right, Howl at the Moon, David.
October the 2nd is Howl at the Moon. It was originally for August. We pushed that back a little bit. We did not want to cancel. All the information we were getting at the time was nobody was doing an in-person physical race. They were all doing virtual races, which the closer we get, if that's all we're getting are virtual races, we'll probably try to move forward with that. We prefer the in-person races. Our timer, Rabbit Road Racing, has not committed yet just because he's not doing any races.
The
So,
COVID.
yeah, it's kind of got everybody hamstrung, but, we're ready to move forward with our stuff. So that's our plan anyway, Howl at the Moon on the 2nd.
I might have a contact for you. I'll send you tomorrow.
Awesome. for a timer.
Everything.
And it's not on the agenda, but Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, that was our movie for this past Friday. It's another one of them things, you can't win for losing. We're going by the information we have at the time. We had to make a call by 1 o'clock, so we decided we were gonna cancel that for that night and reschedule it. If they come out and they're on premises, whether it rains, snows, or whatever, they get paid. So with the forecast that the forecast that we saw for Friday afternoon, we just didn't feel comfortable taking the chance. I did get some rain on the way home. I know Steve called me yesterday and I was like, what happened to that rain on Friday night? We did get emails though that the lightning detection system went off on the football field at about 8:15 and it did not.
Well, at 12 o'clock, it was showing like 70–80% rain.
Yeah. Well, and we were watching it every 15 or 20 minutes and it would drop from 60 to 50. We'd go like, can you believe that?
I've canceled many a baseball games
Yeah.
up here. And when's the new date?
Well, right now it is tentatively September the 11th.
All right. All right, our next meeting, hopefully, if David, as he so eloquently says, the COVID don't get us, will be September 21st, right here at 6 p.m. We'll just start down here with Miss Carol, who has been so quiet, and see if she has any comments.
No comment.
Golly.
Come on out to the farmer's market tomorrow.
That's a comment.
Next.
Good to see you all again. I know it's been a really long time since we were all gathered together, so glad everybody's been doing well. I think everybody's been mostly healthy, so glad to hear it. One thing I would like to comment is, going back to the Reagan Smith presentation and, the feedback that we're getting from the community. I get that, we're at about 400 people, 300 people, they had said, which to me sounds like less than 1% of the population of the city. I remember bringing up in a couple meetings ago, they really need to push more to get more community engagement on that so we can actually hear what people this is going to affect have to say about it, and it doesn't seem like that's really happening. So I know I've been spreading it through my circles. I don't know how much traction it's getting, but just a reminder to make sure that we're bringing everybody and directing them to that site to try to get that feedback that we need. Otherwise, we're shooting in the dark as to what the community really wants and needs, But really glad that we're back on track to make things happen again.
Ms. Skinner?
With him, I'm glad to see everybody. And, of course, I see Steve every once in a while. But I think we've had a productive meeting this evening, got a little bit of headway. And I'm glad to see us trying to get Old Timers Day back on the schedule. That's all I got to say.
Ms. Deborah?
I'm along with everyone else. It's good to be back together again. It's been a long time, so thank you for allowing us to come back together and as a board. I do have a recommendation that I'd like to set out there, since I always have something. I previously had been on the Miss Laverne committee for a long time, and I was informed that that pageant was going to be canceled. I do have a suggestion, because I'd hate to see that canceled. That pageant has been going since 2012. We don't necessarily have to do that inside a building. In fact, we used to have the young ones do the pageant outside at the Old Timers Festival. And I'd like to make a recommendation. If you're looking for things to do, why can we not still have the pageant but incorporate it in an outside setting? We've done it before. It's worked, and I would just like to make that recommendation instead of completely not having it, which that's the way it had been approached to me, that we might look at that if you're looking for activities, because I know handful of people that would still like to participate. A lot of them that had talked to me were disappointed, you know, and I told them during the current state, you know, but either look at doing it that way, or I've seen other municipalities in the state do their pageants for county pageants, things like that, offer it virtually. So I just want to throw those two recommendations that you look at that, because I did have a lot of people approach me that they were disappointed. And it is understandable. We all know there's a pandemic going on, but to maybe look at doing an alternative to it this year. So other than that, that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Bob?
Well, I'd like to, this has been the second 10-year proposal that I've been through here at Laverne. I'd like to see this one come about something. The last one, Kathy's gonna have some of that information in a couple folders I gave to her. But all of this has been talked to before, Steve, and nothing has never been done about it. I was working and I didn't have the time. I don't know anything about
Well,
grant
let's,
writing and all that, but
let's hope and pray and be positive that there is a new regime around, and that while it may be a while, is that things will get done. It'll be brought back up continuously. So
I think the main reason, the city doesn't have funds available to match. I mean, if you go back and you look around, we're probably one of the lowest taxpaying in the county, or Middle Tennessee probably. We don't have, Laverne doesn't have a lot of money
you're
to
right.
meet some of those obligations for grants, if we do get a grant. How are we gonna get that money?
Mr. Bob, other municipalities, and I have mentioned this before, are also allocating funds out of parks user fees. As another thing, David, I strongly urge you, I don't know if there's any allocated funds coming out of park fees that you generate being allocated towards capital projects. I strongly recommend that that's something you look into the
I
future.
don't think it is.
Because you're right, we have to have the funds to move forward. So you need to look at a plan and how are we going to accrue those funds. There's park fees coming in, so possibly take a percentage of that annually and set it back for those capital projects.
What about building permits?
But
Can building?
there's other ways, and I know that he said something about developers. Are there fees that you're incurring for park fees?
We've got
Or,
I guess I can talk about this. We've got a special meeting tomorrow night, the Board of Mayor and Alderman does. It's something that I've asked about since I've been in office, but our impact fees have not been raised since 2003, I think.
Oh, my goodness.
So we've got a special meeting tomorrow night, not here, but virtually. And we're gonna, I hope that we do something drastic with those impact fees to help us. But anyway, your point is well taken. Miss Kathy?
And other than that, I'm glad to see everybody. I'm cancer-free.
Yay!
I'm very happy for it, so.
You'll be playing beer pong at the thing. Kathy?
Well, gosh, that's really hard to top. I'm so happy to hear that. I'm very pleased to be back and seeing all these faces and workers out here again. But I would just really briefly like to revisit the point he made about the splash pad, that there wasn't really much of an appetite for one. I really think that was something that was politicized about 2 to 4 years ago, not having a splash pad. But again, when you look at these local parks and recreation fund grants, I saw people getting like $250,000, $350,000 to pay for these splash pads. And I think that and I don't mean to be negative at all, but if the city can find $125,000 for a dog park, a state-of-the-art dog park, then surely to goodness we can find money in that $20 million reserve fund that we have to maybe get something for kids also. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I don't know if y'all watched the Bowman meeting or not last month, but I can't praise him and her enough, but David McGowan and Kathy, man, they have, cause we lost their, we lost their, event coordinator. He is no longer. And, Kathy stepped in. She's doing both jobs. She's doing an amazing job. David has finally got some help now, so, I think.
I can't take the credit for that. She's doing probably 98% of it, and the other 2%, she's still telling me what to do.
I know she's doing a great job. I know that.
Well,
Good hand to
100 years. 100 years since women got the right to vote. You make us proud, Kathy.
I tried to go Facebook Live at Farmers Market. I looked around, she was nowhere to be found, so.
He was there, I was there.
On purpose.
In your shadow.
It's good to see everybody. There's a lot of good things that's gonna go on in this city, but, I mean, let's face it, let's call it what it is. It's this COVID thing, and, it's, some people are scared, some people are cautious, some people are over the top with it, but you have to play the rules and everything. So, let's keep it positive. Let's work on some things, and, cause I'm telling you, I'm gonna have that female flag football game before I get out of office. I call this meeting adjourned.